almost 100 different people between the ages of 16 and my having met Glenn at around 19 years old. So I just knew I wasn't going to stop until I was working with someone or sitting across from someone who would allow me the space to be who I was and express exactly what was going on for me in real time. And sitting with Glenn, that was the invitation. He was basically saying, who are you? And let's, both of us were saying, let's have 1 + 1 = 5. And it really did start that way out of the gate with us. Well, the one-dimensionalization of being singularly perceived as angry was almost comical, because I don't know any human being that's singularly anything, And then later on it was that I was singularly spiritual and then singularly philosophical. So there's a little bit of a violence to trying to have any human being be one thing. And at the same time, if there were to be one thing ascribed to me, I'll take anger. It's an empowering force. And when it's destructive, it's, no one's having any fun. But when I take it up on what it's offering, which is just this empowerment and this movement out of depression or movement out of despondency, anger is a gorgeous force. I'll take it. A handful of people weren't happy because they thought the record was too caustic, quote unquote. And I quickly had to figure out what that word meant before I could respond. And I just thought, wow, if you want a record from someone who's 39 years old and is mellowed out perhaps a little bit, don't sign a 19-year-old who's been repressing a lot her whole teenage years and exploding, and writing very kind of urgently. And they knew what they were getting into when they met me. So as a Canadian, I basically attempted to re-record 2 or 3 of them to assuage their concerns, but ultimately everyone loved the original demos and the original take on it. So we returned to what we started with, thankfully. What wasn't I listening to? I was listening to classical music, I was listening to hip-hop, I was listening to full-blown rock, I was listening to Bob Dylan, I was listening to Whitney Houston, I was listening to everyone, So I would listen to the female gorgeous singers like Etta James and Aretha Franklin and Whitney Houston, and I thought if I could sing along with them and hit every note they could hit, that I'm legit. And then I would listen to bands that were hybridizing with loops and guitars, and I just liked the idea of not having to be succumbing to a genre, and that was part of the charm as I felt it, and the challenge, I think, for some people around me, because they didn't know how to categorize me at the time. Well, there was a precedent-setting time to writing, especially the song Perfect on Jagged Little Pill. It was written in 20 minutes. The music and lyrics were written at the same time. It was as though it was channeled. It was really a fast process. So the living of the life that I'm commenting on obviously takes decades, but the actual visceral moment of expression takes anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes. 50% of the time I'll come in with an idea and flesh it out, and then the other 50% of the time I have no idea what I'll write about, and I let the music dictate it. I would tell my 19-year-old, 20-year-old self that it would be okay to have a couple of needs and to ask for help and lean on people. I think there was this sort of survivalist soldier aspect that I'd adopted long before I wrote Jagged Little Pill that I continued to adopt. And, I feel very proud about how I held myself at the time. I remember my manager basically saying, Alanis, God bless you, just keep looking down. Keep looking at the train track right in front of you, one step at a time, because it was really overwhelming. There's a lot of stimulation, a lot of projection, a lot of people hurling their unsolicited opinions at me. So I stopped listening to people, to be frank. I just kind of shut down, as I see a lot of celebrities do when they're in survival mode. I think that there's a freedom and a liberation for artists, which I very much like, of this direct contact with people. There's less of a bottleneck where we're beholden to appeasing or, basically adhering to any requirements that are made of us, where our loyalty really is to our own expression and our own art, and we work with people who really get that. So there's less swimming upstream as an artist, more freedom. And over time, I just saw that whole developmental mindset with record companies that they used to have in the 60s and 70s, where they'd be with an artist for the long haul, that went away pretty quickly, especially with the digital era coming into play. But there is a freedom now for people to try their hat at anything and to just go for it and throw the noodle up against the wall and see if it sticks. So I do like that freedom.